Hi, welcome back to A Place for All Concordia Conversations. My name is Jennifer Backstrom. I am your host. I'm the assistant director at our Concordia Place on Ravenswood site. And today we have Rosa Ramirez-Richter with us. She is a mom of three children who all went through Concordia Place. She served on the board here at Concordia for 6 years. Rosa has worked at Healthy School Campaign for 12 years and is now at the U Chicago Consortium. And today we're going to be talking about family and student well-being and what that looks like at the early childhood, home visiting, and teen level. Rosa, thank you so much for being here and joining us on A Place for All. We're so happy to have you.
I'm so happy to be here. I'm delighted to be here.
Wonderful. We're going to try something new today. We haven't done this yet, but as you can see, we have some Play-Doh in the middle of the table. I thought we could have something that we could kind of figure out and mold, maybe with the prompt of your favorite winter activity.
Love that. Okay, let's do this.
Feel free to pick your color and we'll just go for it. White for the snow, right?
We can share.
Absolutely. Well, Rosa, I think you have a very unique perspective of Concordia Place, being that you've been a parent and on the board. Tell me a little bit about what drew you into early childhood and how that's kind of shaped your connection to our school and what you do.
Thanks for that. I think what draws you in is being a parent, right? It's trying to figure it out, and your kiddo doesn't come with an instruction manual, and so you're faking it until you make it. And I was just really lucky and blessed to stumble into Concordia Place when I was a first time parent, trying to navigate it, but also working full time and trying to find a place that I felt comfortable, that felt like it mirrored the values that I have as a family, that where I want to raise my children as bilingual in a diverse setting, access to nature, having healthy meals, like having all those things modeled for him in his everyday environment. So I went through like an extensive search, looking in our neighborhood. Chicago's so blessed to have such a great network and tapestry of different home daycares and just early childhood centers across. But for me and my family, we're like, oh, okay, that's great, but it's missing something. And then it's one of those things of like you um, hear like from others, like throughout the neighborhood of like, you got to check out Concordia Place. You got to check it out. And so I heard it a few different times. I finally came in for a tour. And it was just one of those experiences. You can't really describe it, but like the moment you walked in, the way that folks are greeting you, the environment itself is just beautifully um, placed. It's like the third teacher. Like everything's at height level for a child. Everything is just so thoughtfully created. And then as I talked more with teachers and other parents, I was like, this is the place. And so my oldest, who's now a sixth grader, he started off as in the Toddlers 2 program.
Wow.
And then my second grader, he came as an infant, 6 months old. And then my daughter, who is in kindergarten now, she came through the program as well and started as an infant. So throughout like every level of it, I've just felt really reinforced by the community, the warmth that Concordia Place offers. And then the more and more I learned about what their program is, what their values are, what's behind that, I just became really engaged.
Yeah. And I'm sure that each of your children are unique. And so you also kind of got a unique experience with all three of them coming through, but still seeing that congruity throughout.
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that because yes, all three of them, different personalities and they have different needs. And I felt that Concordia really was able to flex to my family's needs and really meet my child where they're at.
Yeah.
My oldest, he's just very rambunctious, like climbing the walls, gross motor activity off the charts. And is like very confident to go into new situations. Whereas like my daughter is a little more reserved, would hide behind me. And I felt the teachers and the environment here were like, if you need a moment, like there's a little reading nook to read her a book before you step in, to just like calm and regulate, co-regulate together before folks get in. So I think, that's the beauty of the place. It's just like they're really being able to meet your family where they're at and understand, what are the needs that this specific child
Right.
has.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And how does that work with you as a parent as well? Coming into the classroom and dropping off your child and which child that is and how they transition into the school experience. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And then, um, I'm lucky enough to work in the field where I'm learning a lot about the intersection of school, health, education, all of those things. And so you mentioned at the beginning, I used to work for a nonprofit called Healthy Schools Campaign. And now I work at the University of Chicago Consortium in School Research. But I see a through line in that as like, how do we create school environments where people feel like they belong? And so the research is super clear, right? When families are engaged, students thrive, in all kinds of areas from, their social emotional development to families feeling like they couldn't support their learning to students practicing healthy lifestyles, taking, less risky decision making, and that's just like been proven over and over. What's really special is I think the newer research coming out is thinking about that the way that students experience their school and the way that families feel in that school environment is just as important than those academic outcomes, right? Of like, yes, they can learn their numbers, they can learn their letters and all of that, but none of that is void unless families feel like they belong and they're rooted here and they're seen and there's a community of support around them.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you think that comes into play kind of on a day to day basis? Like you said, you came in and you knew right away there was a feeling here and you could see the environment. What does it look like, for teachers to implement that day to day?
Yeah, and I think it's extended to all of the adults in the building. So when you walk in, the front desk, clerk says, "Good morning, good afternoon, how are you?" Just like a simple greeting like that goes a really long way,
Yeah.
right? And it's, um, but also, the head of school or the head of, like your role at Ravenswood is, I remember very specifically at the start of a new academic year, folks would stand outside and there was a big excitement for the new academic year, so it translates from, the grassroots, the classroom level, all the way to like the leadership of the organization and seeing like those really genuine gestures of care. Um, and making space of like it's okay for your family to hang out here.
Yeah.
One of my most beautiful memories is hanging out in the annex in the fake space and just crafting, like doing what we're doing here. And we would make in the season of gratitude, create little crafts or for the holidays, do that and just like not feel judged, or just like being allowed to be and exist in that space. And I think for the classroom environment, it's simple. It's just teachers checking in with you, like, how was your weekend? I noticed, your child doing this, or like I see growth. So yeah, I think it's connected to those like everyday interactions, but then also the systems and structures that Concordia Place beautifully executes, like having those formal parent teacher conferences, having, check-ins, if there is an issue, referring it to the early childhood um, system of like maybe they need to get screened for speech therapy or occupational therapy, which all of my children, benefited from and I'm so thankful for,
Yeah.
So I think it goes from, yeah, everyday interactions to like just be really thoughtful about the systems of support
Right.
that exist for families.
Right. Um, I know we talked a little bit about how we're learning so much right now, specifically about the effects of having the well-being in mind of the families and the students. I know social emotional learning is a really big part of that. Um, and then what I'm hearing you say is the parent interaction and the parent partnership. Um, you've given some examples of like what that personally looked like for you, but do you have any maybe like suggestions or recommendations for schools and for parents on how to really create that partnership intentionally?
Yeah. I mean, I think it, like we've touched on, it starts meeting families where they're at and really understanding where their interests. And so I remember from like the classes that my kids were at, some were very interested of like, how do I model, you know, regulation, how do I calm my kiddo down, as like we're rushing them to get them to school. And I think what was truly great is like just tips of changing our mindsets of like, it's not regulating the child, it's co-regulation, right? If you're calm, it helps out allow your child to be calm, right? So like practicing little techniques like meet your kiddo, like don't stand over them, like crouch down to them, right? Talk to them. Let's take a deep breath together. So some of those like little micro learning moments have been super important. And I think it's a reflection of the training that teachers receive in their own professional development, but then how they then share that with families. And so I think that just reflects that Concordia Place sees families as a partner in this educational experience.
Yeah.
And then I think Concordia Place has done a great job of thinking about like how do we involve families, not only on how do we support them in their learning, but how do we involve them to create and create Concordia to be a better place, and have like windows and mirrors to their experiences of how does this become our place, not just Concordia Place. And so like your parent advisory council, to, like their parent opportunities where they can share feedback with Concordia leaders. I think it's just like a great reflection of the deep thinking that's what I've done here.
Right. I have noticed since we've been doing the parent advisory council that there are things that I just don't see in my experience when I'm in the school and doing my job because I'm not the parent that's walking in through the door with the same lens, right? And so having that, we learned so much about what the parents see and what questions that they have that I wouldn't have even known to ask. And then that really fills the gaps in order for us to just be a better school, be better at serving the students and the families and really creating that connection. Yeah. Yeah. It's great. Um, where do you want to go?
I could riff on that one. I mean, because like so part of the feedback that you're getting from parents, right, is helping just everyone be in tune of where they're at.
Yeah.
So I think right now, in particular, with just immigration actions in our city, right, we're thinking a lot about how are our most vulnerable families feeling in this moment, where there's increased immigration actions, kidnapping, in our city. And so how is that impacting our children who are just trying to get to school and have like a healthy childhood full of play, full of joy? And so thinking about how we can support our families in that moment, I think Concordia has done a beautiful job of thinking about small and big ways to show gestures of you belong here, you're important to us. And going from like simply posting, signage in the front door saying like all are welcome, or this, ICE agents are not allowed to be here, I think has been like a very powerful a moment to speak as a community that we're here for all Chicagoans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I've seen that happen in Concordia time and time again, not just in this particular moment that we're in, but we can think back in another particular moment of the pandemic. Like people have to go to work and make a living. The world has stopped turning. And we also have to think about our teachers' safety, well being. And I think Concordia did a really great job of figuring out okay, there's a need. how do we navigate it? How do we lean into our mission of this is a place of yes,
Mhm.
and thinking about how are we serving our families and our teachers in this moment when everything is so chaotic.
Yeah.
So I think it's a really consistent pattern of where Concordia has been of like trying to center students and families, and by extension, also centering our educators in that.
Absolutely. I know I was doing some research on you before this, and one of the quotes that I read was like asking the question, who is most at risk and how do we meet their needs? And just kind of centering that around the things that we do and the decisions that we make, of really just trying to, um, we talk about disrupting social inequities here, and how are we meeting the needs of our families, and whose needs do we need to meet, and who are those people, and how do we do that?
Yeah, and I think in a lot of essence, it's about how do we lift all boats, and then thinking about like targeting universal practices that just allow everyone to be successful and thrive. And so one thing that I wanted to share too is as I was on my journey of finding the best early childhood place for my kiddos. Diversity for me was very important, both in race, ethnicity, and income levels. Um, and I think Chicago has a lot of systemic and historical inequities in play, where our city is so segregated by income and by race, and it's only getting worse. And when you look at early childhood spaces, it's very I think it just mirrors the city in
Yeah.
terms of like it could be one of the most segregated places um, where you do lack that diversity in both experiences, but also your cultural linguistic backgrounds. Um, and I think Concordia has been a trailblazer of thinking about like how do we bring all families in and create the future that we want to create, where we all live in an integrated society. And so their sliding scale, model of just, yes, let's meet the needs of our most vulnerable, but also thinking about our families that are in that messy middle
Right.
who don't quite qualify for assistance, but don't quite make enough, to really, put a third of their income going to early childhood expenses.
Yeah.
And so for me personally, I benefited from that. And it was wonderful because I was able to stay in my career, continue on while my kiddos were experiencing a high quality early childhood space, and lifeline champion for Concordia Place because of that, and for many reasons, but just for giving me an opportunity, giving me a chance, um, and essentially making an investment
Yeah.
in the family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know we talked on a previous episode with Grace just about how we want Concordia to be a reflection of the diversity that is around us and the community that is around us. Um, and also that creates experiences for students and families to interact with each other that may not otherwise have those moments. And I think that just makes everyone more well rounded as a community of seeing people of different races and backgrounds, and just the light family scenarios. So, yeah, awesome. Well, what would you say, just to kind of close this out a little bit, what would you say kind of gives you hope in what we're learning about family well-being and kind of the direction that we're going in?
Oh, that's a great question. And then, I mean, I think in general, what gives me hope is that adults can do better, right? Like we can, systems can change, adults can learn so that students can be successful. And so I think family engagement is a piece of that. Is like if we bring them along in this conversation of how do we create better schools, better classrooms, better homes, they're just like a underutilized asset in so many ways. And so I'm excited about the hope and potential and just like the wonderful ways Comfort is already engaging parents to create like these really dynamic, rich, and healthy environments for our kiddos.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. Yeah, it's great. Well, did you finish your Play-Doh?
I do want a little crazy.
All right.
These are supposed to be sprinkles
Okay.
on a sugar cookie because
Fantastic.
one of our favorite holiday traditions is baking cookies for our neighbors.
Okay.
So we go on like a big, never-ending assembly line on creating cookies.
Wonderful. I love that. It's great.
What did you?
I need a little wall with some snowballs that I grew up with an older brother, and we would get in snowball fights over the winter in the big snowy days. So I created, I'm picturing the scene for an elf,
Yeah.
and he is having the big snowball fight. So yeah, awesome. Well, I think we have one question from one of our team. You ready to hear the question?
That's wonderful.
If you could have been in any after school program, what would it be and why?
Good question. You know what? I think I would be in a chess after school program, and only because I don't really know how to play chess,
Yeah.
and my kiddos would love it,
Yes.
and I feel like I should know how to play with them.
Yeah.
And also just in general, I think boys in general play chess more or are encouraged to do it, and so I think also just being a woman, a girl playing chess sounds really cool and rad, and I would love to flex some chess skills. So I think being in a chess after school club.
That's wonderful. My 4-year-old nephew is very into chess, and he knows how to play it better than I do. So I get that. That's
I love
awesome.
that the kiddos coming out for doing this.
Yeah.
So
I think I would want to do some type of culinary cooking, because it's just a skill that I'm okay at, but it's a skill that you use almost every single day. And so that's something that I would enjoy doing, just learning new recipes and how to make different things.
and then you get to eat them.
And then you get to eat them or share them with others,
Yes.
which I also love. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here today. Really appreciate your time and your conversation. Just loved having you.
Thanks for having me. This was fun. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. This is a place for all, Concordia Conversations. Until next time, we'll see you later.